Hey guys, I'm David DeMuzio.
And I'm Steve Cook.
If you're already bald, today we're going to talk about your hair loss options. So, when we're saying already bald, we mean if you're looking at a Norwood scale, just generally speaking, around a Norwood 6 or above, 6 or higher. So, Steve's going to take you through what he would discuss with a potential patient who is in that kind of position.
Sure, David. Well, Norwood six and sevens are extremely bald. So what we're talking about is the rim hair over the ears and around the back. For those of you that know this industry, it's called the donor hair. These patients that come in, they're extremely bald, have been told by other clinics that maybe there's nothing you can do, basically because a lot of these places just don't have experience in restoring hair on that massive of a surface area. Surface area is one thing, and then specialty and density is another. So it really comes down to the law and supply and demand. If you see an ethical and honest clinic, they're able to tell you whether or not it may be worth it for you to explore doing something. So I'm always talking about worst case scenario, always planning for the worst, hoping for the best. So in a worst case scenario, if you've been bald for 20 years or 15 years, no matter what age you are, and you just can't stand it anymore or sick of it, you don't want to shave your head, that's just no longer an option. It really comes down to the supply area of the donor hair, how well your donor hair is in regards to the caliper and the thickness and the density and all that. For those that are kind of blessed, which is I like to say, with really strong donor hair, the sky's the limit. I mean, we're talking about, probably going to have to do a strip procedure if you want to maximize the very best hair in that center core. But let's talk again about worst case scenario. Most class sixes and sevens are really just looking to stop seeing themselves as bald guys in the mirror. I mean, everyone that we talk to on a daily basis, whether it's coworkers, friends, family, we're normally engaging in the frontal section of our scalps or the side profile. If you're okay with sitting in a church pew or in a school bus or something and the back of your head is being shown and it's open, then there's a lot of opportunity for you. In my opinion, someone that has, let's say, just one procedure with pretty good donor hair in the very front, which is what we call in the industry a frontal forelock, you can literally look 10 years younger. 10 years younger. Now, I know what a lot of people are going to say when they see this video. They're going to be like, come on, what are you talking about? This guy's got like 150 square centimeters of bald head. How are you going to take hair in the back and cover that? Well, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about giving someone the appearance, as long as it's done properly by the right doctor, right clinic, that can take that donor hair and work their magic. And you know that a hair transplant kind of sort of is an illusion anyway. I mean, think about it. Let's just say that on the top of all of our heads, if we're considering a hair transplant, we had 25,000 or 35,000 or 50,000 hairs, and we're paying significant amount of money for an experienced doctor to move 7 or 8 or 9,000 hairs in one procedure. How's that going to compare? Well, the reality is that we can make less look like more. If it's done properly, and there's a lot of patients that I've dealt with personally that I put in a category of extreme hair loss, then in just one procedure, as long as they're limited in their expectations, we can literally change their lives and make them look 10 years younger.
Yeah, I mean, if I get up in a mirror with my own hair and I go through it, probably the density is only maybe 50% of what it is on the sides, where I have this really thick, super thick hair. But if you're looking at me, then it doesn't look like that. It's all about looking like you have hair, looking
Exactly.
like you have dense, thick hair. And my hair looks like it's dense and thick. I actually just got my hair cut the other day. And actually, regularly when I get my hair cut, I will have whoever's cutting my hair, one, not have any clue that I have a hair transplant. And two, they'll actually just tell me, just, wow, like you have great hair. And I'll like almost laugh out loud whenever someone will just, who's cutting my hair will randomly say that. Because I'm like, man, like that's so crazy for you to actually compliment me on having great hair when one, it's only 50% density probably of what it originally was. And two, that it's a hair transplant, but that illusion is so strong.
Yeah, I give you an example, David. Just recently, I was in Dr. McGrath's clinic in Austin. A patient stopped in, and it's kind of in the middle of the coronavirus, so it was kind of strange. But he had stopped in, and I happened to be there, and he was a patient of about a year ago that lives about 5 or 6 or 7 hours away. Texas is a pretty big state. And this guy, I remember him, he didn't speak English, he spoke Spanish. And I basically tried to talk him out of a hair transplant. I mean, listen, 70 years old, still got a lot of time left, but come on, you're going to spend a decent amount of money. And he was a Norwood class 6.
Hmm.
So I laid it out and told him, you're not going to get a lot of coverage. It's just, is it going to be worth it for you? And you know what? He was willing to do it, So he looked at a few photos of kind of guys in his similar situation. Anyway, this guy comes back in and the front half of his head was done. He wears it longer and combs it back. And he literally looks like a different human being. He doesn't even look like a younger version of himself. He looks like a different person. So he's sitting in his chair and I'm showing him, his before and after photos. And he's still, there's a language barrier and this and that. I'm working on my Spanish. He's shaking his head. He likes it. Could not believe what he looked like before the procedure. Could not believe those were even his photos. He says, well, I got a little bit of thinning in the back now. I want to get some more hair so I can grow my hair less short. I'm like, thinning in the back? You were in Norwood 6. Like, you were a bald guy. You were put out to pasture. There was no hope for you, sir. I think I said that in Spanish or tried to. Anyway, the moral of the story is he was extremely pleased. He looks like a different human being. Now, keep in mind, if that donor hair wasn't as strong as it was, this gentleman obviously happens to be of Hispanic descent. Any of these top quality doctors like Dr. McGrath would have never done it anyway. But it was one procedure. We like to tell everybody plan on 2. Mm-hmm. But it was one procedure and it was just a life-changing, blow your mind result. And that's something that you can really smile about.
What about guys that are in their 20s that are already Norwood 6 or 7? What should they do? Because that's a very different position than being an older guy in that position.
Boy, that's a tough one, David. Well, in the early 20s, if you're in Norwood 6 or 7, the reality is you probably started losing your hair and your hair was starting to thin at maybe 14 years old, maybe 15 if you're lucky. I don't see a lot of promise there. I can tell you that if you are someone, again, that has very strong donor hair and you're willing to explore a couple years on the medication, meaning you're going to have to go hardcore. You're going to have to marry yourself to the medication, because what a lot of patients don't understand is that over time, the donor hair can be susceptible to the same DHT that causes our hair loss. Now, it's not going to all fall out. And if they're 23 years old and a Norwood 7, they're pretty much done losing their hair, but then over time, their donor hair can thin.
Wow.
So we really need to kind of sit down, map out a plan like we do for everybody anyway, and say like, okay, here's the deal. Today the doctor is going to inspect your donor hair. It's either thumbs up or thumbs down. If it's thumbs down, there's no surgery in the future of this patient. Okay. There's a chance that donor hair can get stronger if they get on the medication. And of course, it's very safe. So that's an option. And then we explore a few years later. In regards to 23, 24-year-olds, 22-year-olds that are Norwood 6s or 7s that have strong donor hair, we still want to kick the can down the road because we want to make sure that they can tolerate the medication, which at that age, it's 99.5% chance they will. And then we want to make sure that they understand they need to stay on this medication long term. Once that's done, we need to go back and regroup, and we need the doctor to map out a hairline. In the old days, we called it an age-appropriate hairline. Sometimes with a Norwood 7, doctors will refer to it as a frontal forelock. And we just need to really talk about realistic expectations and what we can do. We definitely don't want to go down the path of FUE, although that's going to cause a lot of comments. But the strip procedure is a better option for the 6s and 7s because, like we've talked about on many videos, you're getting the center core, more higher quality hair, and you're getting all of it and the most densest hair. The only problem with that is, by today's standard, you can't shave your head in the future because now you got a scar.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into this. In my opinion, David, after all that I've been through and been fortunate enough to be able to communicate with the world through your YouTube channel, in my opinion, we need to have a really long, hard look at this. At 22 or 23 years old, we need to bring the parents into it and really decide on where we're going with this and if it's going to be worth it. And if they've got the hair either strong enough from day one and they're tolerating the medicine, or they've created a better environment in their donor hair from using the medicine, you would be shocked how they can get through their 20s. I mean, in my 20s, I was wearing a wig on my head. I got through my 20s by wearing a wig.
Mm.
And it got me through my 20s. It wasn't easy, but it got me through my 20s. So by today's standards, it's going to be a rough road in the very beginning, but if we map it out properly and they become either a better candidate or, we're all on the same page, we do the right procedure, right doctor, right clinic, it can be significant.